The runway is short and unmarked, just a seam of dirt between trees. A twin-engine plane kisses down, rattling crates in its belly. On the manifest, supplies for men with armbands and worn boots. The Contras, Washington's bet in a Cold War corner few Americans will ever see. But not every crate is what it seems. Some carry a different cargo that will travel farther than bullets ever could. This isn't a story about a single villain. It's a story about choices made in the dark, about how secret wars pick imperfect friends, and how those friendships come home in ways nobody will admit on camera. We will follow one line from jungle to city, from ledger to living room, and we will prove only what the documents and investigations allow us to prove. No more, no less. Years later, when the files are pried open, official investigators will acknowledge a hard truth. Some rebel allies and associates were involved with cocaine trafficking, and agencies missed chances or failed to stop it. They will also say the agency did not run or direct a drug empire. That tension, links, and failures versus no proven command is the spine of this story. But our flight doesn't make sense without an earlier map. Before the dirt strip in Nicaragua, there were mountain paths in Southeast Asia and an older war that taught everyone the rules of looking away. Laos, early 1970s. The war bleeds across borders. In the highlands, Hmong fighters become America's shadow allies. The hills are also part of the Golden Triangle, where opium runs like a second harvest. Journalists and historians will later document how US covert alliances intersected with that trade, how aircraft militias and local power brokers created a gray zone where fighting the enemy and moving narcotics sometimes shared the same roads. There is no neat confession letter, no single master plan. What we have are patterns described in landmark reporting, most famously Alfred W. McCoy's work, placing CIA-backed anti-communist networks and the regional opium economy in uncomfortable proximity. Washington denied complicity, as Washington does. The scholarship argued tolerance and enabling through proxy choices. Either way, a lesson calcified. In covert war, logistics are king. And kings don't ask many questions of the mules. A decade later, on the other side of the world, a new covert fight would borrow the same logic and collide with cocaine at the worst possible moment in American history. In Nicaragua, a left-wing government is dug in. Their enemies, the Contras, are desperate for money, fuel, and faith. In Washington, Congress draws a line with sharp teeth: no military aid to the Contras. They call it the Boland Amendment. On paper, the war stops here, but policy has two lives, the one in hearings and the one in hallways. In the basement of American power, a workaround begins: private donors, friendly governments, cut-out companies with nice stationery and no questions. Then comes a bolder idea whispered half a world away: sell arms to Iran under embargo and move the profits through the shadows. Later, investigators will call it a diversion. The truth feels simpler. When you can't spend official money, you spend unofficial money, and you move it through people who know how to move things. A logistics web blooms in the dark. Chartered planes, borrowed airfields, deniable vendors. It is built to be invisible, but invisible is also rentable. The same lanes that carry radios without an invoice can carry anything someone will pay for. And in the 1980s, Latin America. The customers who pay best are men with bricks wrapped in tape. On a map, the arrows look clean. On the ground, the arrows are people, pilots, brokers, middlemen, each with their own price and their own silence. Once the lanes exist, you don't control who else walks them. You only control how long you pretend not to see. And then the jungle speaks. A plane falls out of the sky and the workaround crashes into daylight. The workaround thinks it's invisible until the sky tears. Super, Northern Nicaragua, October 5th, 1986. A Fairchild, C-123, staggers through low cloud, late and heavy. Searchlights rake the trees, then a crack, then fire. 3 men don't make it out, one does. A parachute blooms like a bruise against the night. His name is Eugene Hasenfuss. He will be filmed before he's bandaged, named before he's debriefed. And in front of microphones, he will say the quiet parts out loud. Ilopango Air Base, resupply runs, drop zones. He will talk about people who seemed official even when they said they weren't. Washington denies owning the flight. Private operators, they say. Freelancers? But the crash breaks the seal. Reporters yank at threads. Committees convene. The workaround, built in hallways, is dragged into hearing rooms. The verdicts arrive in careful language. A White House process failed. Arms were sold to Iran against policy, and proceeds were diverted into the shadows to keep the Contras alive. The ink is cool, the meaning is hot. The war that was supposed to end on paper never did. And in the lanes that work around money built, other cargo learned to travel. Ledgers surface with companies that don't bear scrutiny. Airlines that move relief on Tuesdays and something unlisted on Thursdays. Pilots who switch IDs like jackets. The files don't give you a single mastermind, they give you a neighborhood. If you stand back far enough, you can see the streets connect. A plane fell, and with it fell the myth that the pipeline was tidy. The truth is messier and more dangerous. Once the runway exists, it does not ask for your permission. 10 years later, the Echo lands on a desk in California. A reporter named Gary Webb opens a folder and finds the shape of a claim that will get him praised, punished, and immortalized. A Contra-linked network feeding the crack market in Los Angeles. For neighborhoods already living the fallout, the story feels obvious. For editors and rivals, the lines look too straight. The debate turns vicious. But the argument does something arguments rarely do. It pries open cabinets. Two words define what comes out: scope and caution. The California slice of the record says no evidence that agency officers partnered with or protected the most notorious LA dealers. The wider slice catalogs dozens of touchpoints: airfields, airlines, pilots, cutouts, where the Contra wars, logistics, and the drug trade crossed paths. It names allegations known, warnings mishandled, moments missed, and then it draws a hard line. No proof of a top-down agency conspiracy to run cocaine into American streets. If you wanted a script that declared a single villain, you won't find it in these pages. What you find is a pattern. A covert war that outsourced logistics, a shadow marketplace that welcomed anyone who could keep a plane fueled and a question unasked, and officials who, too often, treated smoke like fog, while the footnotes argue the street keeps its own ledger. In the late 1980s, crack isn't an idea. It's a siren, a pawnshop receipt, a charge sheet. Prices drop, potency spikes, and the market innovates faster than policy can blink. In fear and fury, Congress writes a law with a number that will haunt a generation: 100 to 1. Did the Contra pipeline cause this? No single river fills a flood. Chemistry, price, supply, urban decay, policing, all of it churned together. But if you're mapping responsibility, one tributary runs straight from secret runways to open streets, and the record, messy, redacted, reluctant, admits the overlap. What we can say, what we can't. Before we close, the claim deserves the truth, not a slogan. We can say parts of the Contra support network touched companies, pilots, and airfields later tied to trafficking. Allegations were known inside government, and action was inconsistent or late. We can say arms proceeds from Iran deals were diverted to help keep a covert war alive, and the process that allowed it failed in the open. We cannot say on the public record that there was a top-down agency conspiracy to run cocaine into American cities or to engineer the crack era. Step back and the map is legible. Covert wars choose imperfect friends. Improvised logistics attract criminal expertise, and secrecy invites impunity. Secret wars are fought off the books. Their costs are paid in public. If you want to know what happened, don't ask the myth. Ask the flight logs. Ask the invoices. Ask the reports that took a decade to pry open. And ask the people who lived with the Echo. The runway was real. The choices were real. The consequences still here. Return to the runway. We end where we began, on a line of dirt that isn't on any map. The light has changed, but the runway is the same. So are the choices that built it. A plane noses into view, small against the trees. If you'd stood here years ago, you might have believed every crate was charity with a flag. If you stand here now, you know better. War built lanes. Lanes invited travelers. Travelers changed the cargo. And when the paperwork couldn't hold the truth found other places to live. In neighborhoods, in sentences, in ledgers no one meant to show. The public record won't hand you a single villain. it will hand you a pattern you can read without help. Covert allies with ugly sidelines, improvised logistics that welcome smugglers, officials who mistook smoke for fog, and communities that paid loudly and for a long time. A war you can't admit builds a pipeline you can't control. Secret wars are fought off the books. Their costs are paid in public. If you still want answers, don't ask the myth. Ask the flight logs, ask the invoices, ask the people. The runway was real, the choices were real, the consequences still here.